Spiky Bits. Make sure you stay in the trenches. Help keep our channel ad-free by becoming a supporter over on Patreon and also scoring yourself some free miniature swag in the process. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out our site, spikybits.com, for all the hot hobby tutorials, news, rumors on all your favorite hobby topics. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today. What's up, Hobby Maniacs? Rob Baer here with a look at the brand new Warhammer Quest Silver Tower box set. This is that exciting RPG-esque board game that's kind of harkens back to the 90s and kind of has captures that Warhammer fantasy and Age of Sigmar kind of flair all kind of in one, I guess, so to speak here. Now, of course, they don't come pre-painted, unfortunately. That's, part of the hobby we all know and love. But it does come with 51 great new Citadel miniatures, from these Birdmen and Zines to the little fire horrors. Then they got blue horrors and pink horrors, the Gaunt Summoner, the Minotaur dude, because what's Labyrinth without a Minotaur dude? Even though they named it something else fancy to copyright it, it's still a Minotaur. And I don't know how to say its last name, so that's why we just keep calling it a Minotaur here. I feel like, and then it's got all sorts of great board components and some instruction manuals and things. You got your skill deck, your treasure deck here, so all sorts of great stuff. And we're going to take a closer look at inside the box here, and then we'll probably do another video on exactly how to play this thing, because we did a little walkthrough based on what was in the White Dwarf. And now that I'm sitting here reading the instruction manual, I'm like, man, this is actually a little bit more complex than they kind of, not complex in a bad way, but complex as in it's more interesting, I guess, because when you play an RPG element, sure, there's a lot of people that just want like a dungeon crawl and just want to kill stuff. But then there's a lot of people that want to do like the Tomb Raider kind of style thing where you got to solve puzzles. So it all kind of comes together, I feel like, with this this particular core set for the Warhammer Quest. Now, we know there's going to be expansions, and they actually allude to another expansion that's coming out in this manual right here, actually. So we're going to show you that, because we know about Mighty Heroes, but we didn't know that there's some bad guys on the way here. So you get the adventure booklet and the guidebook, and this is basically kind of like the quick start, but more like the rules kind of thing. And then this here has your encounters, depending on what you roll on the 2d6 together, so it's going to be between 11 and 66. So those right there. Now it does come with all sorts of cards, but I already removed them out of their sleeves because I wanted to take a look at them. And they're really nice. They're high gloss, super nice printing. And this is the encounters, and then they've got a little card for the Gryph-hound that comes with the new what's his name, the Excelsior War Priest. So they got that guy right there. So that's the one other thing. And then you've got all these basically their exploration, so you can get different. Basically, this is how the board is formed going through the game. You know what I mean? So there's a whole bunch of different tiles here, and I think there was 13 different double-sided tiles, so I guess that technically makes 26, I think it was, 26 different rooms you could have. But then again, there's like different scenarios, like you've got the same passageway right there, but it's got two different names. So make sure you shuffle this deck good, so you don't keep holding the same shaped room and such, because you don't know if that affects the encounters. And then of course there's the treasure deck right here in purple, and that has all sorts of like cool swag and different items and things that you can get for your actual guys to level them up and keep them with you. And then there's the skills right here, which is basically what you get from Renowned, I believe. And these things can help you throughout the game. So it's kind of like, it's got that RPG-esque kind of leveling up kind of feel to it too. And another thing I liked about it too was they've got right here, they got those little familiars, from back in the 80s. They had the little mans, like they do with the moon head and the little bird and the walking around like book, and then a little fish guy. And they actually have names. Apparently they're Pug, Blot, Tweak, and Slop are the Gaunt Summoner's familiars. And then they have different abilities, because you can capture these little guys and put them, with your heroes, but they have different abilities, both good and bad. They have a boon and a bane. So like this one here, you can discard Tweak to reroll up to 2 dice after you make an attack roll or destiny roll, which seems pretty good, always rerolling attacks is good. And then Bane is discard D3 hero dice from your hero cards, so you wouldn't be able to perform actions, it looks like, and discard a destiny dice for each hero you cannot discard. And that's your overall community dice. So that could be pretty bad, depending on how it goes there. So fate is always fickle, and that's all part of the game right there. Like I said, it gets, as I started looking through this, it gets deeper and deeper, and I'm like really excited to kind of crack the instruction manual up and just kind of get the overall gist of it. But before we get to that, that's going to be definitely a separate video. This is kind of like our first look review of the box set, basically. So once you get it open, and I pulled all the cards out, they would be in here, you know, factory sealed. The tiles and everything's in the bottom, and then you've got two of the same sprue right here, and we saw these are basically the Denzians of the Silver Tower. You got the, you know, the new pink horrors, the blue horrors, the little fire dudes. Then you've got the one Skaven guy, which you end up getting two of, the librarian, which is the pink horror. You've got, you know, the new birdmen. You got the little grotling scuttler guys that are like part spider, part grotlings, or grots, I guess. And then you've got the Minotaur isn't actually part of this. He's a separate kind of clan pack type deal. So there's two of these sprues, which I thought it was cool that you get two of those pink horrors. I imagine they're going to sell for a lot on the secondary side, just because they make a cool herald and such for 40K. So then it comes down to this, and this is kind of the first time we've seen this. Like, I found this really interesting. Like, this is basically a sprue of like the clan pack kind of sprues, right? So you've got what looks like, you know, the different guys, and let's zoom in on this for a second. Okay, so here's the Excelsior War Priest guy, right? So it's basically, you know, the normal clan pack that you've all come to expect, you know, something that usually goes for about 30 bucks or whatever. This is the one that was actually separate by himself. But then you saw that sprue earlier, right? There's 4 on each one, which really leads me to believe that this is the intent of to put these guys out singly and blister format, or at least have the option to in the future, whether it's in Age of Sigmar or as part of an expansion for, you know, Warhammer Quest, because we've already seen 4 of the dudes for Warhammer Quest are coming back. And they're going to be part, or for Age of Sigmar, and they're going to be part of Warhammer Quest in the Mighty Heroes box set at a savings of almost 50%. So, you know, so I like how Games Workshop's leaving their options open here. Here's the Questing Knight guy, and then here's the parts of the Minotaur dude. So he's actually a multiple kit clan pack, which I think those normally go for like 40 bucks or so. So he's a two clan pack. And then the other heroes here, you got the dwarf End Fire Slayer, End Seeker guy, and then the what is that? I think that's the Dark Elf guy, and then the High Elf right there, and then the Gaunt Summoner itself, which is remarkably small. Kind of, I expected it to be a little bit bigger, but he's kind of like a sorcerer boss, so that kind of makes sense there. So those are the clan packs and the rest of the miniatures, and then of course it comes with, you know, all the bases. You get all that, of course, and there's a little separate thing of bases too right here that there was just a couple extra ones I think that some of the bigger models fit on right there. Okay, and back to the box set, you get the rest of the dice, and each one of these has a color that basically corresponds to a hero. Oh, and something I didn't show you was the hero cards. Here they are. So these are pretty neat. You know, they're like they're about a 5x7 index card, I guess, give or take. But they're big, so you definitely can't miss them. You know, to put the dice on them basically, so you can do your different actions, and then of course they have renowned and different things and different special rules. And there's a bunch of them. You don't necessarily play with all of them, and, you know, in a game, because generally it's, you know, you have 3 to 4 players, I guess, from what it was saying there. But you could theoretically play with all of them. You'd have to adjust the spawn creep, I imagine, a little bit there. And then it comes to the assembly guide, which of course that's the hobby part of why we do all this stuff. Sure, there's some other games out there that are less expensive, like, you know, Descent from FFG, or even, you know, say Rebellion, you know, from FFG as well on the Star Wars side. But that stuff isn't a hobby, you know. This might be 50 bucks more than what we've seen comparable games out there, but now we do know there are expansions, and we do know that also you know, it's more of a hobby set. Yes, there is you know, cheaper stuff out there, but this, I feel like that's kind of an apples to oranges kind of comparison, where people are like, hey, you know, there's this other stuff that's cheaper. I'm like, yeah, but it's not a hobby. You can't, you know, this is the part that sets it apart, you know, from everybody else, I feel like. But, you know, it is what it is there. So there's some great looking miniatures. They're all computer sliced, and, you know, they don't have a 100% rhyme or reason. Some of their heads are separate, but for the most part, they just basically kind of all go together in a random sort of way. Like the Horrors of Zenith right there basically are push fit together, kind of snap on the front. the little blue horrors are, you know, kind of like a three-part kind of thing. They just go together. The scuttlers are like a left and right kind of piece right there. We haven't seen that in a while. That was how they used to design the horses and such, the mounts back then. And then the little Carrick Alkalites, little Zinchi dudes, Zinchi cultist guys, I guess. You know, they're a front and back kind of push fit. The familiars are pretty much the only ones that are like ready to go right out of the box. They just kind of glue right onto the base there. And of course, there's the names as well, if you were getting mixed up on who was who. So the very last part to show you today is the board, and of course it's just like all the other boards out there, you know, from Space Hulk to Betrayal at Calth to a lot of the games, even Dreadfleet, you know, like this pretty simple stuff. You know, it's the UV coat, the high card stock material. It punches right out of the cards here, and then they've got markers, you know, wound markers and things like that. Very high quality, you know, very vivid graphics. Obviously they're going for this whole, like, you know, Tzeentch is effing crazy. You know, you're in Chaos Land, so none of this is really going to make sense, and everything just kind of seems to be, you know, just kind of like a revolving kind of, you know, just nothing that makes sense, because you teleport, you know, room to room for each encounter there. And then there's the portals where the guys, the mobs, or, you know, the monsters that you have to fight basically come out of. Now, trying to keep this together, and after opening it up, it's going to be a task, because we actually send this stuff out to some of our folks that support our videos here over on Patreon. So I want to try to keep it in a good condition for somebody to get it at least. There's the renowned markers that go around the game board itself. Some more passageways, so it goes from being like kind of a crazy like metallic hot mess to now like more of a kind of like a bedazzled thing, and then it really starts getting into a lot of this. Reminds me of some of the zones in World of Warcraft, and then, you know, to more of like a celestial kind of board right here, and then you start getting into like organic caves and like very almost like a cross between Tzeentch and Eldar kind of world, I feel like, right here. And then on the back, very similar stuff. And then it gets really organic, like some caves and stuff, like kind of some wood elfy sort of things right here, I feel like. And then at the front, and there's the blades, the kind of the blade chambers, the whirling blade chambers, I guess. And this is the game board right here, where you put the two different decks, and then you have your renowned, and then you put your destiny dice in here. So that's part, you know, that's actually part of the game board. And this is who controls the bad guys here, the Mark of Tzeentch. I don't know what these are. Oh, I guess they're just parts that go into the room there. It's really interesting. And there's a Fire Slayer rune for some of his abilities. So let me put this back right here. So overall, I think, you know, for $150 US, you know, it is what it is. Yes, is there cheaper games out there? I'm not gonna lie to you, there is. Is there cheaper hobby games out there? No, there isn't. Like, you know, Betrayal at Calth was, I think, $150 or $165. The night game was $195, you know, but we all know why, the cost of the nights and such there. But, you know, overall, I feel like it's a pretty decent value when it comes to the hobby here. Oh, and this is the guidebook. Basically teaches you how to play, but it has some really dope looking art in here, like, you know, the Silver Tower itself, because of course, what a game called Silver Tower can't have a little introduction to the Silver Tower. And then they talk about the heroes and some of the villains and the different things, and they give all the actual in-game stats and things to how they play. Now, if you want the Age of Sigmar War Scrolls to play with your models here, they're in the White Dwarf 120 for the bad, or excuse me, 121 for the bad guys, 120 for the good guys. So those will get you up and running for playing the casual games, the casual side of Age of Sigmar there. And then there's the familiars. Now in the other book, and there's a quick reference to the consequences of Destiny, messing around with the familiars and things around sequence and actions. Now the adventure book, like I said, this is basically how to start and end trials. There's that great graphics that we saw on the White Dwarf at the end of the White Dwarf last week, and then basically what you roll on the dice. Like if you roll 2 1s, it's a 2, and this is the random occurrence kind of type thing here. And then I guess when the Gaunt Summoner is slayed, read passage 38, so something there happens. Now in the back, and this might be why a lot of folks didn't really know what was happening, I guess, like there was a lot of nobody really knew that there was going to be an expansion, and it's because I guess they, you know, a lot of the promo copies and things didn't go out to the press. But, and kind of this explains why, because they basically talk about the new champions that were coming out in this book right here, as you can see. right here are what's coming out next week, the Mighty Heroes pack. That's normally $100 retail. Separately, these guys are, I think, $50 or $55 if you buy that box. And then this is their rules for playing in-game with them. And also in White Dwarf 121 is the rules for playing with the Plague Champion as well. So they have plans for bringing out more and more guys that are sold individually. It's just, when they get to it. And then apparently there's going to be a monster pack that's coming out, and that's going to have Screamers, Flamers, a Herald, and an Exalted Herald of Tzeentch. Remember, this is the guy that's on top of the chariot. This guy also is from the chariot, so these are like two separate pieces from the chariot. Flamers and Screamers Tzeentch came in a box of 3 for Warhammer 40k and also Warhammer Fantasy. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how they kind of box that, if they went back and redesigned them and put them on little clan packs, or just basically how that's gonna work. And then here's their rules as well. So if you're buying the game, you're going to at least have the rules to play with these models. Even if you don't have to pick them up and you already have them in your collection, you can play with them right off the bat as some extra pieces there. So that's pretty much it. I mean, that's what's coming out. You got some more stuff for encounter tables. Now we're going to take a closer look in the next video, of course, on how to actually play the game, which I think will be really fun. If you enjoyed our video from last week on the White Dwarf review, which was basically more about playing the actual game itself, then I'm sure you will enjoy the next video in this series here.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.